channel. Thank you to those that recently joined. I hope you're enjoying what you see, maybe learning a bit along the way. If you do have any questions about what I'm up to or how to do things, please pop it in the comments. All right, so tonight's mission is to tackle the front of the chassis, rebuild what I cut off the other night, put the front piece of angle back on, and then what I'll do is I'll put it up on a chassis rotary, a homemade one, and that'll make it a lot easier to work and do all the welding. I'm not having to try and weld upside down, etc. Whilst I can weld, I'm not a pro, so I like to make life easy for myself. So I've been shopping, still shopping, lying under my other Caravan, a couple of bits of 50x50 box and 50 angle and 30x30 angle. That will pretty much all be going into this chassis build. So let's get into this thing. Cut our first bits of angle iron, cut them on a scarf joint or a 45-degree joint. That's to make the weld longer and make it much stronger when you join it. So we're going to tack those on. Not using anything particularly fancy, just a single phase arc welder. Little Powercraft unit, it's been great, gets the job done. Handy little hint for building general stuff. It doesn't have to be frames, it could be decks, it could be furniture, whatever. Getting things square. You can use a square, that's great, it'll get you so far, but once your object becomes quite big, it becomes a lot more difficult. So we want a far more accurate way of doing that. What we're going to do is we're going to measure from corner to corner across a diagonal, and if one length is longer than the other, then we know that our chassis isn't square. You can squeeze in one direction or the other direction to square it up and you'll get it perfect. A pretty lucky first shot from corner to corner. It's within 3mm with something that's over 4 meters diagonal. That is pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it at that. For a Caravan that's 73 years old, 3mm not going to matter. Prep work's done. We're looking good, everything's nice and straight and square. I'll show you a little bit of a video of the setup. We're clamped in place. Now I'm going to go through, tack everything. I won't fully weld it as it will pull with the heat of the weld, so we want to do that evenly from the bottom and the top. The draw bar's in. We have a slot in the front as I'm going to weld a plate in underneath, so I'll use that gap to weld the plate in. That is to hold the coupling on. Angle iron's been split. I currently have some box underneath just to hold everything nice and straight while I weld it. It's looking good. Square. I've measured from corner to corner and angle to angle, and that's to make sure that everything is absolutely spot on. The last thing you want is your draw bar to be off, because then that will make your toe a bit skew and track down the road. Okay, we're back. I've taken off the temporary stands, made up some rotational jigs, really simple. I'll take a couple of photos in a second. But now what it means is that the whole chassis can be rotated around with relative ease. Makes it really easy to do the welding. Weld on one side, flip it over, weld the other side. Not too much of an issue. So About as easy as that, and spin it back. Little hint, a couple of really handy things to have while you're welding. Welders use these all the time, although they've got proper magnetic squares. A couple of magnets helps hold everything in place while you're tacking up. Whilst welding's part of my trade, I'm not a full-time welder, so if there's any welders having a look at this, feel free to comment. But I'm pretty happy with how it's looking. Hey, taking a quick look at our ladder rail that will be underneath the Caravan. It's currently upside down. Make sure your joints are good, no big gaps, so you're welding steel to steel. I've V'd out so that I can weld directly to the upright, which makes it very, very strong. And then right at the front, I've kept the rail coming right down so I can weld along and around. Makes for a super strong joint. Good techniques. Progress check-in, all the ladders are in. They're the structural support underneath. Works very much like structural supports under a bridge, helps stiffen up the chassis. So drawbar ones are done, side rails are done. This morning going to set up to weld on some little tabs for holding the floor supports, the wooden beams going across the chassis. Use a combination square, engineer's combination square. There are cheaper ones around that you can use. And this is for accurately measuring the angle so we can get our tabs nice and straight. I'll show you the process. Alright, so we can line up and measure the angle of our drawbar, showing that it's 25 degrees. So then what we could do, divide that in half, 12.5 degrees per side, cut our little bits of angle, weld them on, and they'll be perfect. Tabs are in for the floorboards, so we're going to move on to putting in the new stabilizer feet, 2 feet at the back. The old style were quite a wide wing style, a lot of moving parts, and they tend to be a little bit problematic. I quite like this sort of style. They're very simple. I've used them lots of times. You can buy them from Save Barn, $49 a pop. And now to align it with the old holes. cut some little brackets out of the leftover box section that we had from the drawbar. So 50 by 50 box, just cut the back end off. And now what I'm going to do is weld on a nut onto the back. It saves me having to use a couple of spanners when you're putting the leveling feet together. And because these nuts are zinc plated, I've ground 2 edges away, otherwise you can't weld to the zinc, it won't take. I was talking to a young guy the other day, and I was chatting about what I was doing the chassis and some welding and blah blah blah. This young fella, he's still in school, and he mentioned, my mate said any Muppet can weld. Yeah, any Muppet can weld, but you want to make sure the weld's going to hold. And I'm sure if you have a chat to a welder, they'll probably disagree. So if welding's not your strong point, best not to do structural welding like this. Plenty of practice, it takes lots and lots of practice and a lot of patience. Like I said, I'm a fitter turner by trade, welding's part of my trade, but I'm not a welder by trade, and there'd be plenty of people that can do a much tidier job than what I can. Time to do a bit more welding. Gone and got myself a fresh box of electrodes. 2.5. I use 2.5 millimeters mostly. You can buy them in a few different sizes. $29 for a 5 kilo box from the tool shed. They work pretty well, but there's loads of suppliers out there. So far I've probably gone through about 1.5 kilos or 2 kilos of weld rods. So in the total build, probably go through about 2.5 kilos to do a trailer. Most professional welders would be asking, well, why aren't you using a MIG welder? Because that's predominantly what's used out there for doing this sort of medium grade stuff. Pretty simple answer, don't have one. Today we're going to set up to put our new coupling on, nice new shiny coupling. So we'll be drilling and tapping some holes. I'll show you a little bit about taps if you don't know anything about the engineering side of things. One thing to bear in mind when you're getting, if you're doing some work on your coupling, don't pop down to Mitre 10 and get your bolts or Bunnings or whatever. You'll get some lower grade bolts, right? You'll want to go to a bolt specialist. You get some high tensile bolts, so they're very strong. They're made for this kind of application. So high tensile bolts or cap screws for the coupling, and also be using special high tensile bolts for the leaf springs. So that's an absolute must. Don't get your average 8.8 bolts, they won't be strong enough for this. So for those of you that haven't seen these, it's called a tap. It's a beginning tap or a second tap. This is what's used for making internal threads and holes. So all of these taps come with a specific size that you need to drill. This is an M10 tap to fit obviously an M10 bolt, and then we drill that with an 8.5. Plenty of charts online so you know the right sizes. Obviously if you're in engineering you'll know this anyway. tapping the holes would be done with a tap wrench, a T-handle sort of thing, but I appear to have misplaced mine, so today we're improvising. A couple of vice grips, although slightly unconventional, will still do the trick. Must have done something right because it all fits when on a piece of cake. I'll show you a couple little things about it. Under the coupling we have a 6mm plate, then we've got the 3mm box section, and then on the inside, which you can't see now because it's covered, is another 6mm plate. So that gives plenty of thread strength for these screws. You want a minimum of 1.5 times the bolt diameter. So for a 10mm bolt you want 15mm, which is exactly what I've got. One of the things that often happens with Caravan chassis is a drawbar rusts out. It gets water in there, sits in there, rusts on the inside out. You don't even know. To prevent that, we are going to paint it. I'm going to do it a pretty basic way. What I have done is taped off the bottom tube. The top tube is open, and the hole at the front's taped off as well. So we're going to pour the paint in and basically rotisserie the Caravan or the chassis to get all of the inside coated. Once it's pretty happy with it and I know it's coated, I'll open one of the holes and let the remaining paint back out. It'll be a beautiful thing. Okay, we've got a half a litre of paint in there now, so now we'll do the rotisserie. That will make sure that the hole inside of the tube will get coated. So I'll turn it nice and slow, give the paint plenty of time to coat everything. Okay, paint day's finally come, and rust guard, hammer finish paint. I like the the finish on it. It's a charcoal colour. It helps, especially with the older part of the chassis. It doesn't show up the imperfections from the old rust pitting, so that's good. I'm not a professional painter. I've learned as I go, but I think I'm doing quite a reasonable job now. Done. It's an absolutely stunning day for it, so I'll let that dry, and next thing on the list to tackle will be all the suspension components. So axle, leaf springs, we'll strip balls all back, treat them, paint them, start putting it back together, including the wheel bearings.